Okay, I just watched a related video to the metaphysics, because I've done tons of these from the very start of this YouTube channel. And I'm taking a little bit of a different approach now because, you got to keep learning or else what's the point of having it again? And I do enjoy the subject in some sense, but it gets tense to go over and over the same thing. So, but anyway, in this old video, short video, it made a point that maybe this will help. Okay, it seems to me every time I get into these conversations, especially as comments and some people that only put in one comment or short, very sized sub conversations, there's always just this intense misunderstanding of what we're discussing. And usually it's just like I tell the people, I give them the information, but I don't do any I have no training attitude or educational attitude of double checking or giving them a little puzzle to think about so that they'll actually figure out what I've told them rather than just tell them. I tell them in a way, there it is, and it bounces off. I know that's fine. But anyway, in terms of trying to help you see, because, okay, what makes a proposition a metaphysical proposition or not is nothing to do with the content of that proposition, right? Okay, you might not think that, but bear with me. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how you intend to establish that proposition. Are you going to demonstrate it, for example? Are you going to prove it? Are you going to just have faith in it? Right? If it's physics, then you are going to demonstrate it with material facts. Okay? If it's empirical knowledge, even outside of physics, but in natural philosophy or just in life, and you're going to go with your senses and the appearances and demonstrate it with material facts, appearances that relate, you can argue, relate to what we call material facts, then it's on the physics side. Okay, it could be about poetry and any kind of thing that isn't part of the field of physics that they study in colleges, but it's a physical thing. It's a physical process that you're describing. If you're going to demonstrate it any other way, then first of all, come up with the ways. But I've already said if it's with a way where you go to empiricism, that it's science, so it has to be some way that doesn't go to the senses. Now, in traditional metaphysics, in religion, you just say, you go with faith, don't question, don't even think about it, it doesn't matter, God said so. Okay, in analytic metaphysics, we're like, well, there is no God, so now we'll explain it. We're humans, we'll just explain it. Okay, but with what? Come up with it, because what always happens, people arguing for the metaphysics, what is the reason? Because you have to. Yeah, you have to believe in, cause and effect, or you have to believe in the law of identity, or you have to believe in the precepts of predicate logic to even have a conversation. It's like, no, because there's all different kinds of systems. That does not convince them. It doesn't matter there's alternate systems. It's always, well, because you have to. And I'm like, well, I don't have to. Here's another way. It's like, no, but we already know you have to. It's excused. I was going to say it's an excuse, but really I'm just saying it is excused from checking with the real world, right? And so many people are like, no, we can check it with the real world, and yet it's still metaphysics. No. It's like you're trying to cling on to this idea because you've fallen in love with this part of philosophy, and it's all these labs and clean rooms and nice clean concepts and lasers holding them up and plasmas. It's very high. It's gotten very high tech, and it's lots of clean rooms and stuff like this. And you've been told, oh, this is metaphysics that does this. There's other fields where we're just as high tech, even more so, because we go back into the real world. The problem with those labs is they had to deal with the real world the whole time, but as they got better and better at it, they more and more really did succeed of like, forget the real world. Okay, well, that's the problem. They were forced to face the real world, even though they said we have a belief system that's all about not having to verify in the real world. And by the time it's so little that they verify in the real world, they've got a problem of utility and just the natural wisdom of it. It's possible to use all these techniques and have these labs and study the real world, And that's what we're doing in all these different fields. And the point of metaphysics, and how can you know if a metaphysical thing is true? You guys, so many times they're like this. Well, how can you know? It's like, look, how do I know that it's metaphysical or not? It has nothing to do with the content. It's how you're going to prove it. If I say I have 2 apples and John has 2 apples, we're going to put them together and share them among our families will have 4 apples. That involves mathematics, but it also involves the material world, right? If I say John walked into the hardware store, whether or not that's metaphysical depends on how I'm going to demonstrate that. If I say because I have the photo or whatever, then that is material. If I say that, well, because I just know. How do you know? Well, God told me that Joe has to do that today. And you're like, well, how do you know about God? Demonstrate that God tells you this kind of information. No, I don't have to. It just has to be true in order for anything to make sense at all. So I believe it. He might have gone in there. Either way the statement is supported, it would be true. One of them is metaphysical because it makes no claims about a physical evidence for what it's saying, even that Joe exists, whereas the other one does. It makes a material statement about material facts. Okay, that's what makes the statement metaphysical or not. So when I say, hey, the law of identity, it's a good thing, but it's not metaphysics. And I say, I hate metaphysics, we're going to get rid of it. And you think, oh, he's going to get rid of the law of identity. No, I'm just telling you to interpret it as supported by material facts. A equals A because if I leave an apple on the table and I come back later, it's still an apple. Now it changes, and that's why on the fundament underneath there, we can't have object-based identity anymore, or perfect qualities, or essentials. We have to have something that approaches the situation differently, have to do with continuity. And information processing is pretty much one of the major answers to that. This is the way to clear up your guys' minds about metaphysics, why it's not necessary. Forget this, but maybe it's out there and true and we could grab it. Forget all of that. You are a computer, very advanced. I think maybe you have quantum computing parts, making you like no computer we've ever known, super powerful, more than a supercomputer. You're awesome. Don't give me I'm not just a computer. Your computing device, where computing is too limited of a thing. You're an algorithmic device, but a physical device, right? You're getting information and you're processing it. That's what you're doing. If you have an idea of cause and effect, it has to be in there. It's a data structure, just like if I wrote a program to look through a camera and listen to microphones and then model and come up with models. It'd be a little data structure in the computer. That's what those ideas are. They're little data structures. Now, if all you're doing is studying the data structures at the very forefront, the smallest scale we've gotten to, the forefronts of thinking in some area, then you're doing philosophy, okay? Only one area of philosophy said, hey, not only are we at the forefront, but we're at the end. This is it. We found them. These are the truths, the logical truths of first-order logic. I mean, second-order logic. Oh, shit, Godel, screwed that up. Okay, first-order logic again. Okay, fuzzy logic, but not fuzzy logic, just the first. Okay. Just programs in the brain that understand the patterns in reality. And when you characterize those, to say something like sufficient reason, if you don't want to say it as cause and effect, which is really a bad one because it splits them too much. You want to say there's sufficient reasons. I prefer idea of necessity. You've invoked reasons. A reason is something in the computer. It's not in the real world. In the real world, it's just a condition, something much more neutral than the idea of a reason, teleological. There are no reasons of that sort. There are explanations and all kinds of things that relate to reasons, but reason is the wrong one to put out there in the real world. The reason's something you get at looking these other things. Even the idea of necessity seems too much. I really just prefer conservation of energy. That's where symmetry and cause and effect and those patterns come from.